Welcome to the webinar today. Okay, I would like say hi everyone first. Hello everyone. Hello for those who are in Australia, Indonesia, and I'm in Malaysia.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, nice to see you here.
Nice to see you too.
See you, Rani.
Nice to see you too. Rani.
Okay, without further ado, let's start, okay? Because we have very limited time. Okay, to the honorable speakers, Dr. Norman Day from Swinburne University of Technology, Melbourne, Mrs. Dyah Kusuma Wardhani from Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya, distinguished guest, Professor Sifanes Philipson, Dean International Faculty of Health, Arts and Design, Swinburne University of Technology, Dr. Astrid, Dean of School of Creative Industry, Universitas Ciputra, Mrs. Suryani Halim, Head of Networking at Partnership Department, Universitas Ciputra, Mrs. Susan, Head of Interior Architecture Department, Universitas Ciputra, fellow lecturers, students, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum, students. Salam sejahtera and good day, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you to this webinar entitled The Placemaking. This talk is a collaboration between the Swinburne University of Technology and Universitas Ciputra. My name is Rani. I am a lecturer in the Interior Architecture Department, Universitas Ciputra. It's an honor for me to be the moderator for today. I am so glad to see everyone here, although we are miles apart. Some of them are in Australia, Indonesia, and myself in Malaysia. Before we start, I would like to inform you our agenda for today. There will be welcoming presentations from both universities, group photo, so please get ready to turn on your camera. And then there will be first presentation by Dr. Norman Day, second presentation by Mrs. Dyah Kusuma Wardhani, and the Q&A sessions will be conducted after each presentation, okay? So don't forget to ask questions because there will be giveaway for 5 lucky participants today, all right? So the microphone will be muted by the host. So if you have any questions, kindly type the question in the chat box. Now I would like to welcome Ibu Suryani as the Head of the Networking and Partnership Department, Universitas Ciputra, to deliver her opening remarks. Please welcome Ibu Suryani.
Thank you everybody. Thank you Professor Sifanes, Professor Norman, Shen, and all our partners from Swinburne University of Technology. Thank you for this kind of opportunity. Today we will hear hear about a seminar. Today is a very big opportunity for us during this COVID. Hopefully, both of the city already lift off the lockdown from COVID-19. Hopefully, you are too, Rani, there in Penang. Okay,
yeah,
without
thank you.
any further ado, I welcome everybody to be our honorable speaker, Professor Norman. I give it back to you, Rani. Thank you.
Okay, next, there will be a short remarks from Dr. Astrid as the Dean of School of Creative Industry. Please welcome Ibu Astrid.
Thank you, Bu Rani. Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from our university. We are very grateful that we have the webinar. This webinar becomes possible due to good collaboration between Swinburne University, Faculty of Health, Arts and Design, and also our School of Creative Industry, particularly in Interior Architecture Department. Thank you very much for your coming, Professor Sifanes Philipson, Dean International Faculty of Health, Art and Design, Dr. Norman Day as Honorable Speaker, Academic Tutor, Faculty of Health, Arts and Design, and also Ms. Suryani Halim, our Head of Networking and Partnership Department, Ms. Susan as Head of INA Department, Ms. Dyah Kusuma Wardhani as presenter, Ms. Rani, and of course our beloved students and lecturers and all of audience. Thank you very much for coming today. I think this seminar will provide benefits not only academically but also culturally. As a result, I think this program will enrich our students' knowledge for both parties between Australia and also Indonesia. Hopefully, this seminar, I think, will be insightful and provide inspiration for the audience, especially in the terms of placemaking. And I think other similar projects are expected maybe to be present in the future. Thank you. Have a fruitful webinar. Please also enjoy our video. Thank you, Ms. Rani.
Thank you, Ibu Astrid. Okay, thank you. Next, I would like to welcome Professor Sivanes Philipson as the Dean International, Faculty of Health, Arts and Design, Swinburne University of Technology, to deliver her welcoming speech. Please welcome Professor Sivanes.
Thank you, Ms. Rani. Thank you for having both myself and Norman here on this within this wonderful webinar. It's good to see everyone. Very good afternoon from Australia, ladies and gentlemen. It's also a very good afternoon to Dean Astrid and also Ibu Suryani for making this webinar possible. It's a wonderful way to enhance a collaboration, a partnership between Swinburne University of Technology and Universitas Ciputra. It is always a good way of enhancing not only a partnership that we are establishing through knowledge transfer and also sharing of different projects that we have embarked before, and Norman will show some of his great and amazing outcomes from his own work. But this is all a good way of ensuring that we then create a pathway to further collaborations in the future. So I feel very honored and feel very privileged to be able to talk to so many people, and there's 134 people in this webinar, and what a wonderful way of disseminating information and sharing information that we know in Australia, and of course we learn from our partners in Indonesia as well. And so I take this opportunity to thank everyone that has come to this webinar, and I'm sure that you'll learn a lot from Norman and all the other speakers as well. But I'm also very positive that we will then learn from you when the borders open, and we will be able to invite you to come and visit Swinburne, and also we will take the opportunity to visit Ciputra when there is that absolute certainty in travel pathways. But for now, thank you, and I do wish you all a wonderful afternoon listening to these presentations from Norman and all the other speakers. I believe I have a presentation that I was supposed to share with you all. I'm not sure whether that slide will come up, but for now I'll sign off and let Miss Rani to take over with her moderation of this webinar. Thank you, Miss Rani.
Okay, thank you, Professor Sivanes. So if you have any questions about studying in Swinburne University, so you can type in the chat box and she will reply later. Okay, I think there will be a presentation slides, if I'm not mistaken, or video.
There was a presentation slide that I was supposed to share, so I'm not sure who's got control of the slides. Nia, is it?
Wait a minute, okay? I'm sorry for the technical mistake.
Excellent. Nia, if you could put that in a slide format. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. So if you go to the next slide, Nia, thank you. All right, so let me begin with the acknowledgement of country. In Australia, we always begin our presentations with an acknowledgement of the country and paying respects to the traditional owners of the land that we are in. Now, Swinburne University is on the land that we of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we always pay respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. We also pay respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia, and hope that the path towards reconciliation continues to be shared and embraced. And this is a nice way of beginning any presentation, because we always acknowledge the people of the nation, and including the people of the nation of Indonesia. Thank you. Next slide, please, Nia. Now, Swinburne campuses, I'm going to just share a little bit about where Swinburne is and a little bit about our courses as well, just very briefly. Swinburne campuses have, we are located in 6 different locations. Originally, we were only at 4 different locations: Melbourne, Wartina, Croydon. They are in Victoria, Australia. Melbourne, you would know, very well if you've been to Melbourne. And we also have a campus in Sarawak, Malaysia. You all would know where Sarawak is. And also recently we have acquired a campus in Sydney, and our most prideful campus of recent times is in Vietnam. We're establishing a very, very solid campus in Hanoi, and also and eventually we'll be building another one in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. So hopefully we will have one in Indonesia, but I think Monash beat us to it recently. Next slide, please. Thank you, Nia. So in Melbourne, our campus is in Hawthorn, a small city called Hawthorn, but it is about 10 minutes away from the city centre via train. So we are one of the lucky ones where the campus has a train station smack right in the middle. So it's very accessible. It's a very easy way to get to the campus. And our campus is surrounded with cafes, shopping areas, restaurants, and entertainment. So it's really not a dull moment for the students who are living on the campus or near the campus. And the campus is also full of greenery, and it's a beautiful setting. So I do welcome you to come to Swinburne University one day. All right. Next slide, thank you. Yeah. Of course, we are ranked, especially in design, very highly. We are the top 42 in the world, and we are still climbing up. We are very proud of our designers, and designers like interior designers like Norman is our one of our famous people that we call not only part of Swinburne but also partner of Swinburne, and we're very proud of people like Norman, and I'm so happy that Norman is able to make his time to present today. But of course, we all are also AACSB international accredited, so our business degrees are well known, and we have other high ranking as well in terms of being one of the younger universities in the world. Next slide, Nia. So this is a little video, a short video by our Pro Vice Chancellor International, Professor Monica Kennedy. It's just a welcoming video. So Nia, if you can switch that on, and if you, I'll welcome you to watch it, please.
Hello everyone, and warm greetings from Australia. My name is Professor Monica Kennedy. I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor International at Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Swinburne, and I hope to welcome you to our campus here in Melbourne in the near future. Swinburne is at the centre of technology and innovation. We're a research-led university that's committed to delivering social and economic impact, including world-leading research and innovation in science, engineering and technology. When you study at Swinburne, you're studying at an internationally recognised university. In 2020, Swinburne was ranked as one of the top 400 universities worldwide in both the QS World Rankings and the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. At Swinburne, education is about more than just knowledge. It's about true job readiness. That's why we work closely with industry to create future-ready graduates. We're transforming education by putting practice-based learning at the core of our programs, and we're at the cutting edge of preparing our students for jobs of the future. This means bringing the learning environment to life by incorporating real-world applications across our courses, study abroad tours, industry engagement projects, and work-integrated learning opportunities. We're a University of Technology, and true to our name, technology and digital innovation is uniquely embedded within all of our offerings. We're located in the heart of Australia's most dynamic and vibrant city. Melbourne's famous for the quality of its lifestyle, including its education, entertainment, healthcare, food and wine, tourism and sport. Melbourne has been consistently named the world's most livable city by the Economist Intelligence Unit and ranked as Australia's top student city in the QS Best Student Cities rankings. Studying in Melbourne offers you not only excellent opportunity to improve your English language skills in a friendly and safe environment, but also an incredible adventure and an opportunity to build critical skills in demand by employers across the world. I invite you to come and continue your journey with us in Australia, and I look forward to extending a very, very warm welcome to you when you arrive at Swinburne.
Thank you, Nia. Next slide. So just to give you an idea about our structure, we have 3 faculties: Faculty of Business and Law, Faculty of Science, Engineering and Technology, and the biggest faculty is Faculty of Health, Arts and Design. So as you can see, Health, Arts and Design is a little bit eclectic, isn't it? But the fundamental part about Health, Arts and Design is that innovation. We are all connected with an interdisciplinary way of fostering our teaching and learning, and also research and industry partnerships through innovation and the design technology. So pretty much you will see if you do come to Swinburne, that there is this opportunity to innovate yourself as a graduate that's ready for employment and future employment that doesn't exist as well nowadays. So, as the world evolves, you need to be ready for that future employment. And the future employment is defined by what is needed in terms of the artificial intelligence evolution, and also in terms of what the world needs for you to contribute to their own advancements. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so now we have 2 with Chuput now.
Sorry, Sivanese.
This slide is supposed to be my counterpart, Associate Prof. James Roffey is from the business faculty. He's not here at the moment, but what we have now is that an agreement between Ciputra and Swinburne University. We have pathways from Ciputra where you have spent 2 years of your 4-year study. We will then recognize 2 years of your study as into a pathway of any of these degrees that you see: accounting, animation, Bachelor of Arts, aviation management, business information systems, criminal justice and criminology, information and communication technology, media and communication, and screen production, and last but not least, and very important, Bachelor of Design, okay, which has a major of interior architecture and also communication design. So you'll have to spend another 2 years with us if you want our degree. Next slide, please. Right, the School of Business is an AACSB international accredited one. So it is something that is of value, and not only very few universities in the world hold this accreditation. So we are one of the fortunate ones. Next one, please. I'll skip all this. Let's go the next one so that I'm just aware of the time. And next, please, Nia. Another one. Let's go to the next. Okay. Now, I didn't share with you, let me share with you about this one that we stand tall on our learning and teaching. We do have, we are known as the highly sought university with high graduate satisfaction. As you can see in the orange bars there, high graduate satisfaction in terms of satisfaction on teaching is 73.4 compared to other universities in Victoria in Australia, and satisfaction in skills development 87.4%, and satisfaction on overall graduate satisfaction is 87.2. So you can see Swinburne University really stands tall. Next slide, please. Okay. Now I anticipated a lot shorter slides because I didn't want to talk so much. Can we skip a few more, please?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Rani. I think these are the slides from September's webinar.
That's all right. Let's skip to the Shen. It's okay, Shen. Let's go to the next ones, please. Okay, so for Bachelor of Design, I'll just show you the slide before, please. The pathway for Bachelor of Design is first 2 years at Ciputra and at Interior Architecture with Swinburne University for another 2 years. And same with Visual Communication Design at Ciputra. You can come and complete 2 more years with us in Communication Design. Next slide, please. All right, so as I mentioned before, Faculty for Health, Arts and Design, we are really diverse and base ourselves a lot in innovation and technology, and we do produce graduates that earn one of the highest salaries, and we have very successful alumni, and one of our alumni that we are very, very proud of is Kenny G, who's been voted by Vogue magazine itself, so for an award. So we are very, very proud to have students from Indonesia participating in our and enrolling in our degrees in design especially. I think I will end there with the view that if you do have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to write your questions, and I'll have replies for you afterwards because I will have to leave for another meeting soon. But Shen, who's my colleague from Swinburne, she will help with answering some of those questions if she can. Otherwise, she will get those questions to me afterwards. Then I will liaise with Ibu Suryani and Miss Rani to get those answers to you very soon. Thank you so much for having me. And I do hope that you'll have a wonderful afternoon with the presentation from Dr. Norman Day.
Thank you, Professor Sivanes. A remarkable speech and presentation. Thank you again. See you again.
See you.
Back to you, Rani.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Sivanes. Thank you, Bu Suryani. Don't forget, if you have any questions, please feel free to type on the chat box, okay? Okay, so today we will listen to outstanding presentations who I believe they will enrich our insight and knowledge regarding the theme of this talk, people, place, and their space. So allow me to introduce the first presenter. The first presenter is Dr. Norman Day. He is an architect, educator, and also a writer. He started his own practice in 1971 with projects spanned from Australia to Asia. His architecture is contemporary and investigative. It seeks to provide long life-term constructions which last over time rather than short-term solutions which satisfy a culture of architecture as a commodity. His dedication has brought him to achieve the 25-year award for enduring architecture by the Australian Institute of Architects in 2010. He is also awarded other professional awards in Australia, and one of these projects was recognized as the House of the Year by Bell magazine. He is also the recipient of the Australian Government Award for Valued Contribution as a volunteer working in East Timor. Besides practicing, Dr. Norman Day, also an educator in many universities. He was appointed as an adjunct professor of architecture at the Architecture-Universitas University in 1994, and he was awarded as an honorary doctorate of architecture in 2000 from the same institution. Currently, he is an academic tutor at the Faculty of Health, Arts and Design, Swinburne University of Technology. His contribution to the architecture will also shown in his articles that have been published worldwide, including in the National Times, Architect Australia magazine, Domus, International Architecture, and many others. So without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Norman Day to deliver his presentation. Dr. Norman, you may share your screen now. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, Norman.
Oh, you can. But
Yes.
can you see the slide?
Yes, we can see the slide
Oh,
as
good.
well.
And who has control of the slide?
I think Nia.
Mia. Okay. So
Mia,
if
yeah.
I ask you to move on, then you'll move on. Okay. Don't move on too quickly. Just what I say. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Hello and selamat pagi, I think, isn't it?
Selamat pagi, Professor
Pagi is still the
Norman.
morning. Yeah, it's very late in the afternoon in Melbourne, but it's it's morning where you are. Okay, let's have a look at the next slide, please. What I talk about a lot is to do with the culture of nations, and the culture of nations is often reflected, obviously, in their art. So what I've done here is combined a bit of our Indigenous art with yours, because I've been in Indonesia many times, and I love the batik work from Indonesia. So I'm a sucker. I'm convinced. Next slide, please. Yep, thank you. Oh, we know enough about that. Next one, please. Okay, so we're going to talk about interior architecture. Now, part of the problem I have in a way is that a lot of people think I have is that I'm an architect, and therefore architects deal with the object. We build the thing, the shell, and inside the shell goes all the stuff that makes life worth living, the furniture and the people. So we build the enclosure, but I don't agree with that. I think architecture is the whole package. It's the whole wrapping, the protective device that keeps the rain out and so on. But it's also the container for where we all spend most of our lives. And so to me, they go together. They're part of the one link. They're linked together. And as designers, I think the best results come from an understanding of the outside form, the shell, and the internal space, the people and their places. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And to do that, I want to go way, way, way back in history to just reflect on where we got to this point, that we have this understanding of inside spaces, interiors and exteriors. So next slide, please. So I'm going right back. I really am going a long time back to the original places that people chose to live in, which were basically caves. Way back, thousands of years ago, people were just roaming around in the forest or the bush or the jungles of the world, and of course there were problems. It was very cold or very hot or very wet, or there were great big animals that wanted to eat you, and so people needed to find places to feel safe and secure. And to do that, they located themselves in caves all around the world. The same story exists. So here's an example of a cave in Malaysian Borneo. But these were natural resources that meant people could get there, get safe, stay dry, usually form small communities or family units, depending on the size of the cave. And they were protected from the animals and the rains and the weathers. It's basically the essence of what interior space means, and the doorway of a cave is basically the doorway between outside and inside that we would now allocate to a building. Next slide, please. So I've got a number of these visions, and I remember thinking at some of these that I've seen in and around the Asian region, for example. They're some of them absolutely enormous spaces, grand pieces of architecture, and they create beautiful places for people to live in. And it's interesting that I think a lot of architects over the years and interior designers have reflected on that quality, the natural quality of what caves bring to us. We now call it biophysics or biomorphic design, biophilia, this natural wanting to live with nature and the requirement of the human condition to live with nature. But when we look back at it, it's always been thus. It's always been that way. And so I think we can reflect on our past, this sort of past, and find where we've come from to get to the point where we are now. The next slide, please. Part of the investigation that happened in these times, thousands of years ago, is where people found that caves also had little holes in their roofs where maybe they were in the side of a mountain and they were close to the side of the mountain or the top of the mountain. And that allowed them to gather or benefit from light, sunlight, during the daytime to come into their caves. And so it opened up another spectre of what internal space could be. It was also quite useful, of course, because they were lighting fires in their caves, and this meant they had a chimney, a way of smoke getting out of it. And if they felt like having a shower, I suppose, and it was raining, they could stand under those same holes and have a shower. But the important thing is that early on in the experience of the human condition, we had this development of space and development of the quality of space using light, just natural light and natural forms. This is in Oregon in the US. Next slide, please. And then we obviously have the confrontation in this beach cave with the outdoors and the indoors. When is one the same and not? Where do we put the boundary up? Do we actually say that's the doorway, or is that the internal space reaching out to the outside, or the outside space reaching to the inside? I think a lot of designers over the years have had that same question in their mind. What is outdoors and what is indoors? When are the two combining, and where do we draw the line? It's not right at the entry to a cave, for example. It could be a mixture of both. So this beach cave just brings that issue up. Next slide, please. And sometimes I look at work that's been done recently. This is a primal dune interior by the architects, Open Architects. And what they've done, obviously, is reflected on the cave and its lessons in the past that are applicable to the future. This is a building that's only 3 or 4 years old, and it's a large gallery space. But you can see the direct connections in this new work to the original cave work and the lessons that have been learnt from it in terms of light coming in at extraordinary angles, the spaciousness of the cave, and in this case, the use of a singular material also to give a sort of form and a shape to the internal spaces. So when you think about it, in this particular work, which is a very modern piece of architecture, it's actually entrenched in a history that's thousands of years old. Next, please. This is another cave, which is a huge cave in Vietnam. Vietnam has a huge collection of these caves in about the middle of Vietnam, and they are renowned because of their size. And you can see here, this would be, if you were a little family of 3, you know, mum and dad and a couple of children and a dog, and you wandered into this cave, you'd be looking for friends. It's an enormous space. So we start to reflect on very large spaces that can be used by large groups of people, communities or small communities, little villages that could be located in these places. So the idea of the cave not just being a place for small groups of people, but being a place for larger groups of people starts to suggest a city and the size of a city and a metropolis. And that's, of course, embedded in this old past. But what it also meant was that people learnt to live together. They had to. So they'd gather together in these places and they wouldn't destroy each other. They'd learn how to live together as groups. And that's an important development in a human condition. Next, please. Then the humans did the most unusual thing. humans being what they are, we're totally unpredictable people compared to ants and bees and things like that. We do very strange things. And so when we got into these caves, we started to want to give them something of ourselves. Part of it was just making signs, and you'll know with a lot of the cave signs and painting that's been done over the years all around the world, people have just put their hand up and sprayed colour around it, ochre, so that there are handprints, and that's just marking the cave. That's like graffiti these days, where you go on a wall and spray it with a can with your name on it, your tag on it. But then it became a different expression where people wanted to talk about their fables, their stories, their dreams, their aspirations. They wanted to talk about their memories, about the animals and livestock that they've seen outside of the cave, and tell their stories. It became, in other words, the largest and most original film set and film screen leading to television, if you like, that we've ever seen. And these are scattered all around the world. This one, Dogon in France, but there are many others. And you can see that they're reflecting on what's outside, the animals that are outside that they're hiding from, if you like, inside the cave. The next one, please. And a lot of these were also to do with traditions and fables and religious beliefs. There was a lot of faith and dreaming and spiritual artwork going on. But the important thing is that humans felt that they should decorate and embellish the interior of these raw cave walls and ceilings. They wanted to add value to them. And that's, I think, a definition of what we've gone on doing in our interior architecture ever since. Next, please. So we have a lot of these caves in Australia, and a lot of them are protected, so that many of them, of course, are 60 or 70 or 80,000 years old. Original Australians are a very old culture. And they would decorate them with their animals. They called them X-ray drawings, because they basically painted animals as if they were X-rays. They showed their bone structure because that's what they had, had that night for dinner. And so we've got these huge paintings right through. This is a rainbow serpent, but a lot of them have spiritual meaning. And so they were almost places of refuge or for prayer as much as for living. And we go to the next one. Next slide. Yes, thank you. So there's another X-ray painting of a kangaroo and a wallaby, so that they've got the bone structure, the fabric of the muscular structure of the animal, and it's almost a medical analysis. And when you think about it, in European lives, it took about till the 14 and 1500s that we started to get people drawing the insides of bodies, of human bodies, and explaining how we were put together. But here are these paintings from 60 or 70,000 years ago that were doing exactly the same. So it's a recording of nature, it's a recording of intellect, but it's also a recording of faith. And if you think about the various uses that we put our buildings to, that's a definition of where things started, and there's not much difference in terms of context with what we do now. The next one, please. This is one that I just put in because I really love the idea. I have a friend who's a first in Australia, an Aboriginal Australian, and I once said to her, now what's this one? It's the most unusual looking little animal. And he explained to me, I think he was joking, that it was the first Martian that had landed in Australia, and they just wanted to record what helmet he was wearing at that time. I don't believe any of that, but I think it's just a kid with a hat on. Next, please. And another one of the Aboriginal art cave paintings. This one's got a little baby in it. So a lot of what we were doing early on takes us right through to what we're doing now. And this is just by way of introduction to what I want to talk about in what we've done since then, with all the variations of cultures and with all the sophistication of being trained designers like we are, and like you guys are being trained to be. Remember that ordinary people, right from the start of history, have the same concerns and the same desires and the same love and admiration for spaces, internal spaces, and making them their special spaces. And I want to show a bit of that coming up. Next, please. So we have people who are nomads. After people got used to living in caves and then thought they'd better start wandering around looking for other parts of the world, they started wandering around, nomads, usually on horses or camels or just on feet. But they needed somewhere to live as they went, so they would take tents usually. And there were nomadic nations of people wandering all around the world for many, many thousands of years, especially through Europe and into Asia and into Indonesia, and eventually into Australia, of course. But what they did was like this yurt tent. It's a nomad group of people who continually move around the landscape, depending on the weather and where the food is. They didn't just build a tent. They decorated their tent. They did what the people in the caves did. They took the tent up a peg or two. And in other words, they became designers. These were the first interior architects to develop a building fabric that was also part of their art world. So art and the functional aspects of a building, in this case a tent, became one. And that's the sort of thing that we do. But it's got a history that goes back thousands of years. Next, please. And of course, they had the same capacity to decorate the interior spaces, which is what we still do now. This is a classic case of a nomadic tent. This is a tent that gets put on the back of animals and into carts behind horses and things, then dragged all around the world to a different site each time. But the people didn't just put their big blocks there or big stones or whatever. They made furniture and elegantly decorated spaces using texture and colour and materials and light to alter the quality of their internal spaces. So the roots of interior design go back to these sorts of early starts in this Kasakasan tent. Next, please. And another one, classic Tibetan house where there's more than just a wall. People have taken a wall, taken a column and painted bright colours to exaggerate their expression of the internal space, so that the human condition is not happy to rest and just let a dumb bit of tree be a dumb bit of tree. They want to make it enhance its value and make it better and have it mean something. I think it's the meaning something that matters most to designers, and eventually I think to people who live in spaces, whether they're designers or not. It's the meaning of the space that matters. So I think everything has a sort of a spiritual nature, and I think that's what we deal with, whether we like it or not, or even aware of it or not. That's what we deal with. Next, please. And the same with this small Buddhist house, where there are just elements of the building that are put together and composed in a way that all sorts of cultures, all sorts of religions, all sorts of people all around the world share this same desire to make a place better by their intervention, which is what we do. Next, please. Even in small places like this, we have a place in Australia. Australia's quite large, it's too big, I can't walk it. But we have a place called Coopapedi, which is right up in the very, very hot, dry, deserty part of Australia. And it's so hot and so dry that people started digging holes into the ground to make caves to live in because it was uncomfortably hot. And when they did that, they found that there were opals there, beautiful jewels. And so a lot more people came and started digging holes because they found they were getting opals, and opals are worth a lot of money. But they didn't just dig a hole, of course. They dug a hole, and then guess what? they decorated it. So this is just a mud hut, pardon me, that's been dug underground. But they didn't just settle on that. They wanted to decorate, in this case, with the spiritual nature of their religion and their beliefs. But either way, they wanted to change its character and make it better. And that's the definition, I think, of interior space making. Next, please. And we'll find this all around the world. Doesn't matter where you look, in Asia or in Africa, in South America, in Alaska, right through everywhere we look. People want to make their places better. They want to make them better using the smallest amount of material they have, because they're not wealthy people usually, and they'll just use lightweight fabrics that they've found, but fabrics that they value, and use them as part of the environment and their design for the interiors. These are not people who employ interior architects. They've never met one, but they do it themselves. So people have that natural capacity to do these things themselves. And of course, if they can get someone who will do it for them on their behalf, which is what we all do now in our developed nations, then we need to know what is the reason we're doing this for. It's not just to match the latest picture in the latest fashion magazine. It goes right back to the spiritual nature and the environmental preciousness that people place on their space and their place. Next, please. And we'll see this right through. So in very interesting but very meager places like this tribal house, Mishing House in Assam, where the floor is just a put together with a belted piece of open webbed bamboo, and the walls and roofs are of course very spacious, with lots of room for air movement between them. It's very hot, so the building itself has to be a big ventilator, and people then take over that space and decorate it with their own requirements. Next, please. And even in this place, this is just a little living room in a very poor part of Spain from about the 1200s. And people, again, they just went to some trouble to make things a little bit different, to exaggerate the weight of stairs and columns and furniture, just to give it a quality that was reassuring to them. So it wasn't just lightweight, throwaway, sit on the floor stuff. It had something else added to it, an added value, if you like. Next, please. What I like about these sorts of interiors, when you look at them, that aren't done by professional designers, they reflect on the quality of aspirations of what people want out of their lives. And they'll do it with the smallest bit of thing. They'll do it with little photographs on the walls of the family, or bits of certificates, or just a selection of material. People go to a lot of trouble to collect things that matter to them and then live with them. And I think that's sort of another definition, if you like, of interior space making. This is just a Chinese interior traditional house. Next, please. And this one in Harlem, New York City, there is absolutely no money. This family doesn't have any money at all. They're poor people, migrants, but they've gone to some trouble in their borrowed space. They've actually chosen to live in the back of a building, which they don't pay rent on. They squat there. But they've gone to some trouble to decorate the walls and to put a large clock on just in case they forgot the time, and selection of materials and colours. So it's just not sitting in there with your baggage and hoping that you can move on in the next day or two. They make a place themselves into something that they know and can respect. And they may not be there for very long because they don't own it, but they will make it theirs for the time that they are there. Next, please. And you see this all around the world, so that this South African living room, these people obviously didn't have any money at all to spend on painting the wall. So they just got old newspapers and glued them onto the wall. I don't think they read them for fun, but it gives them some sort of protection and a sense of place and some security against the outside and some privacy. So small things, small elements are what people do when they can. They make it happen, even if they haven't got any money to do it or any training to do it. People want this sort of thing. That's what they want in their interiors. And that's our job, to give them what we can as best we can. Next, please. This is another one in Africa where obviously the people have got just a purchase on a place, not much, but you can see what happened. It looks like a truck dropped off a whole lot of blue paint one day, and they said, yes, I'll take that, thank you. It's beautiful blue, I don't blame them. But so they've made that place themselves. They defined their place just by a very simple thing, the use of colour. And that defines their inside and their outside community space where they can meet people, and the definition of what's inside beyond that. So small things, and even in this case, just a coat of colour makes that sort of a difference. Next, please. So in other words, it's embedded all through cultures that they want to have that control over their interior spaces. And then if we move, big jump now, into the contemporary world, although they were contemporary worlds we were looking at, we go to things like the more sophisticated end of town, which is the Western sharp hotel reception desk, the big number. And again, we're dealing with those same issues. We're dealing with the same issues of people, space, connections, meetings, in this case a reception desk, so people are being welcomed into the hotel on the one hand, and on the other hand there's the staff there to welcome them, and behind a gold bench, so it has that sort of quality about it. And the spaciousness of the room itself is meant to be one that gives people confidence that this is a business that knows what they're doing. Next, please.
Dr. Norman, sorry to interrupt you. 3 more minutes, please.
Oh, is that it? Oh, I'll have to go quickly. Okay. So you're welcome. So just going through other interiors like this clothes shop. It's not just a clothes shop. They've made it into something quite different and quite special with their selection of materials and colours. Let's go. We'll jump through these a bit. And the same thing in interior spaces with a design museum in London, where that quality of light and space and structure that we saw in the caves is evident in contemporary architecture. Next. And the same thing, you'll see these sorts of spaces, especially in airports and large places where people gather, and maybe transport lounges. So the structure of the building itself is expressed as a design element. Next. And the interiors, that means we don't just have a foyer to a building anymore, we have a foyer plus. So it's dealing with light, dealing with space, dealing with texture, and dealing with colours. The same sorts of things that we saw in the original caves. Next, please. And just in small spaces like staircases and so on. Let's go to the next one. And even small things like reception desks, where there's just an elegance about the way things are composed and put together. I think that's the definition of interior space control, and the connection between the outside and the inside. Once we've come from outside, the object, to inside, the subject, then these elements, these connections, these delicate natures of things, of furniture and lamps and doors and so on, they're the important things. And I suppose that's what I was trying to underline, has come from our originals, starting in the caves, to these sophisticated uses of space now. I think I'll stop then. All done.
Okay, Dr. Norman, thank you very much. Okay, now we proceed to the Q&A sessions. If you have any question, please type your question in the chat box, or you can ask directly, and then the host will unmute your microphone. Okay, so
right,
we wait for the...
Dr. Norman, Miss Rani, I got a question.
Oh, yes, please, Prof.
Hello, my name is Azizi from University of Science Malaysia in Penang, Malaysia. Okay, I got a question for Dr. Norman. You were talking about the cave dwellings before just now, right? At the beginning of your talk. I'm just a question because I need to know, do you think the people created the culture or the confinement themselves created culture for the people? That's a question.
I think it's a haptic thing. We call it that haptic nature. So when we put a body in space, let's say a human, let's say one body, there's a haptic relationship between that human and that space. So the space connects and changes the person, and the person changes the space. It's an interrelationship between the two. So obviously, I think as we became more used to living inside spaces, inside caves, I'm pretty sure that the human condition would have changed. They would have been more used then to relaxing, to resting, to being secure in locked up spaces, and they're obviously starting to relate to decorating and making works of art on the walls. So I think the space alters the person, but the person also alters the space.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Azizi. This is another question. There's another second question on the chat box from Sri Fatinanisa from Syah Kuala, Aceh. Hello, I want to ask the question. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Sri Fatinanisa Iskandar from Architecture-Universitas Syah Kuala. So this talk is relevant about interior design and history and its implication, which I would like to ask how a step-by-step judges a good interior in the face of a client. Thank you.
How do we judge a good interior? What was it, in the face of a client?
In the face of a client.
I think to be a good designer, you have to be very close to your client. It's difficult because quite often we're designing buildings for people we don't know. If we're designing a building like a hotel, we don't know who will be in it because there'll be all sorts of different people. So we have to assume something about those people. But if we're dealing with a particular person, then we can be very particular about that interior and their architecture for that matter. So it's a bit like, I always say, when we start a project with someone, we're not there for a week or two. If we start a building project with someone, we're usually there for about a year. Let's say we're doing a house for them. We're about a year there designing and drawing and getting documents up. And then we take another year to build the thing. So we're actually together for at least 2 years. And it's a very close relationship. It's almost like you're taking on a relative, an auntie or a cousin or something. Shouldn't be get closer than that. That's enough. But it becomes a very close relationship. And so that you do start to reflect on it. I think a good designer starts to reflect on that relationship and the qualities of that human being. But when we're doing more general work, it's quite hard to do that. And I think you have to take some general attitude towards the quality of space that maybe a lot of people will find interesting, but not everyone. You've got to assume that about 30% of the people, if you don't know them, will like your work. About 30% will think it's all right, and 30% will think that you should never have got the job. It's the way it goes. So there's no one solution really, but obviously the closer you can be to your client, the more successful, in my view, the creative work will be.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Norman. Next, there is the third question from Raihan Chantika from Syah Kuala as well. What is the biggest thing that we have to consider when we want to make a strong sense of community in a public space? Sorry.
I think the biggest thing to consider is the human nature But the major thing is to consider the human nature in its, almost in its damaged form. So think of the human nature at its most perilous. If you think of a very old person, for example, who maybe has difficulty walking and living and sitting and comfort factors, or a very small person, little baby, who might be just learning to walk, and you know what those children do, they run everywhere. So we have to think about the most dangerous sort of conditions that might apply and make sure that they don't make for uncomfortable places. If we get that right, then the majority of the rest of the world will probably be looked after. So I think it's sort of like, it's almost like an insurance policy. But if we can amuse and entertain and provide security for people who are the least strong, then we probably have gone some way to giving everyone a good place to be.
All right. Next one. There is one from Sulfikar Takyudin. Next presentation, Prof. Norman. I want to know how to encourage the idea from lighting in the cave to interior design concept that it is so amazing idea from your presentation.
How to encourage it?
The idea from lighting in the cave to interior design concept.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? A lot of architects over the years have done it. If you know the Pantheon in Rome, that great big building built in about 1400, huge temple, and it's got a great big hole in the roof, right on the top. And when I first went there as a student, I knew the building well from my history books, but I hadn't been there. And I walked in through the front door, and it's absolutely huge. And when I got into the middle of the building, it was raining. And I looked up, and the hole hasn't got a window on it. The rain comes in. And I thought that was spectacular. I love going to a building where it rains. So I think sometimes to learn about how to put light into buildings is just do it. So I think light is an extremely effective design tool. If we can combine our ability to make buildings with our ability to understand light, and light coming through all different parts of the world, in our world, I think we've started to get somewhere. Light and sound, I think, is also important. But the way I do it is I imagine I'm somewhere. So if I'm designing a space, as often as not, I try to think of where I want it to be, to feel like. Do I want it to feel like I'm in a forest with big trees hanging all around me and a filtered light coming through the leaves of the trees? Or do I want it to be as if I'm underwater and there's a light coming through the water and providing a gentle sort of wash of color that moves with the water? I think you can do all that. We know we can with lighting in all sorts of forms. So not only relying on daylight, but also designed light, artificial lighting. We can create all sorts of things with lighting effects. And you can also just look at what people do in the art world and in movies to light things. It's the same thing. I don't think there's any definition that movie and architecture and the real world are different. I think we're all part of one thing, and we can all feed off each other and use ideas from each other. But my basic reliable clue to students I have is, if it's in nature, if nature's done it well, you won't do it better. So just copy it. If nature's done a really good job, use that as your guide, because nature seems to have got a lot right.
Yep, that's true. Okay, one last question for you. This is from Arin Arianti. Hello, thank you for your presentation. My name is Arin from Bandung. Related to nowadays situation, I want to ask you how the pandemic will impact to the placemaking process.
I think initially it's starting to have some effect. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We in Melbourne, we've had a big lockdown. we've basically been locked indoors in our homes pretty much for the last 8 months. We just got out last week. We're released. It's fantastic. We're allowed to walk outside of our homes. It's been not good. But then again, we, unlike some places in America, we value people's lives. So we thought if we do that and fewer people would then die from the pandemic, then we're doing a good thing. So as a community, we all got together and said, well, that's what we're doing. But it has made a difference because a lot of people have found that they're very comfortable working from home. And they don't really want to go back and work in a big office too much anymore. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. It also means that a lot of people have made that decision that, well, if I can live in a nearby to the city and not go to the city buildings to work, then I could move out further into the country and live, you know, closer to nature and still be doing my work from home. So I think it's starting to alter those sorts of ideas about where you live and where you work. But then there's another condition that goes with that. If you are going to work from home, and let's say you've got 2 or 3 people, maybe a husband and a wife and a couple of children studying at school, then you need different spaces at home. You can't all work in one spot because you'll all be talking at the same time and it gets very noisy. So the redefinition of home space has become a big issue, I think, and home space is now becoming more like a studio or workspace for a lot of people. So I think there are changes, quite a lot of changes that will be not far away from happening. I think a lot of our larger cities, we have a lot of large high-rise buildings in our city, in Melbourne, 4.5 million people, and a lot of skyscrapers in our city. About 53% of them at the moment are empty because of the virus, because people aren't working in the city. That means there's a lot of really good space that's available for people to be using. And I think that maybe a lot of that office space will be turned into living space. So people might go and then renovate those spaces, the old office buildings, and make them into places where they live. And that'll be interesting because at least we'll get some gardens built at level 58, you know, in the city, which would be a good thing. So I think changes are underway. It'll be interesting to see how they stick, or do we return to the old way of doing things that we had just a year ago.
Okay, Dr. Norman, thank you. I'm sorry to close the Q&A sessions because we are running behind the time. Okay, so next there will be giveaway. I think the committee will choose randomly. Can you share the screen, please? Jennifer? Okay, this is those who are asking, so just pray hard. Hope you can get the e-money from us. There will be 3 winners for the first session. Okay, we have Raihan Chantika is the first winner. The second one is Prof. Azizi. And then the last one?
Wheel of Fortune, eh?
Wheel of Fortune, exactly. Right, the last one is Arin Arianti. Okay, congratulations to the winner, and then the committee will be contacting you after the session. All right, so now please turn on your webcam. There will be group photo after this, all right? We have lots of participants. We have 6 slides. Let me take picture one by one. Okay. All right, say cheese. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slide 2. Slide 3. Yeah, there's 6 slides. Okay, now slide 4. Slide 5. Last one, slide 6. Right, thank you everyone. So before we proceed to the second presentation, I would like to share some latest information regarding our upcoming webinars this month. So feel free to participate. Jennifer, can you please share the video, please? Okay, the next one is the collaboration with UC and UPH Jakarta about rating tools and green design. And then towards the end of the month, there is a collaboration with UC and Assumption University Thailand about lighting basics. So please do join us, all right? Okay, now we proceed to the second presentation. We will travel virtually to Indonesia with Ibu Dani. Her presentation is entitled The Sense of Place, Indonesia Traditional Shopping Area. Bu Dani is a full-time lecturer in Interior Architecture Department, Universitas Ciputra, and obtained her Master of Architectural Design in ITS Surabaya. She has been publishing several articles, national and internationally. In 2013, she was listed as the best 10 finalist for Indonesia Womenpreneur Competition held by the Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection of the Republic of Indonesia. Besides teaching, she is also a freelance practicing architect for commercial and private spaces. So Mrs. Dani, please share your presentation. Thank you.
Miss Rani, can you see my slide?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We do.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. If Dr. Norman already explained about the people and place relation, today my presentation will share about how people experiencing places, especially in Indonesia traditional shopping area. So my presentation today will explain about the sense of place itself, and then Indonesia traditional shopping area through case study and analyze the physical and social factors that create the sense of place. And later, we also suggest design recommendation that suitable for preservation of Indonesia traditional shopping area. So for the background, as we know, each place will have its own spirit of place. And when visitors are present, there will be a link between the people and the place. So at first, we must describe first the word sense of place. Sense of place itself described as the particular experience of a person in a particular setting, whether you feel excited, happy, and many more. So for the factors that create the sense of place, there are two, physical and social factors. Physical factors in form of physical shape of a place, and the social factors is in form of the people activities, socio-cultural, political, economic dimension that provide the identity of a place. And okay, and both of these factors are vital to the area and should be preserved for the sustainability of the traditional shopping area. And maybe you're wondering, oh, why we choose traditional shopping area? Because the traditional shopping area is a center for local custom that is interesting for visitors to know when visiting a new place. When you go to the market, you can find local foods, handicraft products, and other values of local people here. So my presentation actually a research that was led by Dr. Astrid, Cesar Dean, and Dr. Thomas from tourism faculty, and me and Miss Milenia from architecture interior Universitas Ciputra as research member. And we do the data collecting in 3 years from 2016 to 2019. And we collect the data through field observation, in-depth interview, focus group discussion, documentation, and literature study. So for our research object, we choose six popular and unique traditional shopping area that is well known by the tourists in several islands in Indonesia, such as Ubud Art Market at Bali, Triwindu Art Market Solo in Central Java, Ampel Corridor in Surabaya, Sade Village Lombok, KTK Corridor in Toraja, Sulawesi, and we also take the floating market Lok Baintan Banjarmasin in Kalimantan or Borneo. From the research result, we found that physical and social factors that create the sense of place of Indonesia traditional shopping area. Through this scheme, we can see that in physical factors, there are site, architecture, interior, products variants, and focal point. And in the social factors, we have history and memory, narration, characteristic of vendors and visitor, and also events and promotional activities. I will explain each of the factors with the example from the case study. The first one is about the site. So I take the example from KTK shopping corridor. So most of the traditional shopping area located in unique site with special characteristic that supports the visitor experience, to experience the place. As example, this one, at KTK Village. So the shopping corridors located in KTK Village along the main circulation from the Tongkonan area to the burial site. The topography of the area is particularly specific with a hilly contour, and the area comprises various unique objects from the burial site, menhir composition, and the hundreds years old Tongkonan houses in the settlement area. And the next is the site of Triwindu and Ubud Market, also in strategic location and close to another tourist attraction, such as Triwindu. Triwindu located opposite the Mangkunegaran Palace in Ngarsopuro area, which is highlights the Solo's traditional culture and arts through the distinctive shape of the street furniture. And Ubud Market, also located near Puri Saren Agung, and occupies one side of the crossroad that is known as Ubud Center area. So Ubud Market is literally in the heart of the Ubud. And also we have the Lok Baintan floating market. The Lok Baintan itself is located in the river, where the river is the heart of the life of the locals. Along the river, we can see so many traditional houses that stand on stilts and various trading activities. River is also the main method of transport in this area. And to this day, although the river culture has shifted into land, people still use river as the main route for the transportation. Okay, Ms. Rani, maybe I will skip some of the slide because of the duration. And for the second physical factor is architecture and interior. As example, as we can see here, the Sade Village corridor located in Sade Village with several architectural and interior features, such as the distinctive architecture gate and Sade traditional architecture like Balitani and the Lumbung or rice granaries as one of the iconic building in Lombok architecture. Leveling in the corridor of Sade Village and the use of interior of their houses as display area for the merchandise. The significant architectural and interior features can also be seen in the Ubud Market, where there are always a temple for the merchants conducting their daily prayer before starting their trade activities. And the market is in indoor and outdoor area, and a lot of Balinese carving and decoration in building details. And so like in the Triwindu Market also has a significant architectural and interior factor where it features the building use a typology of traditional Javanese architecture with kampung jompongan roof, as you can see here in this picture. And they use the wayang ornament on the facade. They use banyu tetes ornament. And they also use the metal console of the eaves. They use the antique signage. And all of the interior is maximized as a display area for the antiques. And the corridor width is so limited, so it's not too wide. And each of traditional shopping area is sell different products, so it's really varies. As you can see, at Pasar Triwindu, you can see a lot of antiques like wayang, loro blonyo status, and a variety of antiques. And at Lok Baintan, you can buy fresh fruit, vegetables, fish, handicraft, and local foods. Maybe when you go there, you can try soto Banjar. It's one of the local food that's quite good. You can also find woven fabrics inside the village and local accessories using an old coins. And the products in Ubud Market is really varies. So in the morning, they sell daily need products, but in the afternoon, they sell art items for the tourists. In Toraja, you will find various wooden carving, fabrics with traditional Toraja motif, and Tautau miniatures. Tautau is actually a replica for the dead, so they respect the dead by make some replicate from the one who passed away. And in the Ampel, you can find mostly praying essentials and traditional Arabian souvenir in Ampel. Okay. And each of the traditional shopping area has a focal point, one features that catch the visitor attention. For the Ampel corridors, we have authentic gate and Tongkonan at KTK corridor, the Bali ornaments in Ubud Market, and in the Lok Baintan floating market, the focal point in the form of the vibrant colors of the boats. So in Lok Baintan, there are two types of the boat, Jukung and Klotok. Jukung is for the sellers. Klotok is a machine boat for the tourists. And this the boat mostly use the vibrant colors and quickly catch the eyes of the visitors. In Pasar Triwindu, the focal point is in form of loro blonyo status. So loro blonyo is selected because it is one of the most sought after objects in the market. And the loro blonyo it actually symbolizes Dewi Sri and Raden Sardono, which in the Javanese belief can bring prosperity and welfare in life. And inside the village, we can also see the love tree and the rice granaries in the Sadi village. Okay. Love tree is actually a meeting point where boys and girls from the Sadi meet up. And then we move on to the social factors. The first social factors that very influential in forming a sense of place is history and memory, such as Ampel Corridor, which located in Ampel area that has a memory about the story of Sunan Ampel. Sunan Ampel is a figure that is responsible for the spread of Islam in Java. And this legendary figure is entombed in the Ampel area, adjacent to the Ampel Mosque. And this area is designated for religious pilgrimage as well as tourist destination, and retains the memory and history to this day. And we also have about the history and memory of Ubud Market. We can see in this left picture is shows a scene from the old Ubud Market through a painting by A.A. Gede Subrat. And Ubud Market is also the shooting location of the movie Eat, Pray and Love by Julia Roberts. And since then, a lot of tourists have been curious and wanted to visit the corridor. In the beginning, activities in Ubud Market were only conducted every 3 days. On the day they referred to as Hari Pasah, with the pastime, the activities were then going daily, conducted daily, and become one of the tourist attraction in Ubud. And then we move on to Lok Bahintan Floating Market. So historically, river plays an important part of the Banjarmasin as a city of 1,000 rivers. Since the 14th century, rivers have been known as a main transportation and a place for trades, especially in the start of Banjar Kingdom in 1595. And the left photo shows us the floating market atmosphere in the past, and the right photos of Lok Bahintan floating market nowadays. And besides coming to shop and eat and try to local food, tourists also come to take photos and capture the moment. And for the locals, they believe that rivers are the source of their life, the origin of their ancestor, and that they have supernatural characteristic. So the native itself is really deeply respect the rivers. And now we move on to another social factors that influence the sense of place is narration. In the traditional shopping area, we found about 3 trees that have a narration. First is sapodila trees, or maybe in Indonesia you can call it sawo kecil. Sawo kecil is commonly grown in the yards of Kedaton. Kedaton is a place where aristocrats live, and sawo kecil symbolize sarwo ing kabecikan, or maybe in English, always do the good deeds. And we found the other trees in the Ubud Market, banyan tree, or in Indonesia is a pohon beringin. So this tree has a philosophical value that the area under is that the area under the banyan tree is a shelter area for transactional activities in the market. So when you see a market in Bali, you will also find the banyan tree near the market. And we also have the love tree in Sade village. So weddings in Sade village are based on the practice of endogamy. They are usually done between closely related families, and they call it with merarik kacen diri. Locals believe this will be a strengthened bond between families and reduce the expensive cost of weddings. So the girls wait here to be kidnapped by the woman that wants to marry her. Just like that. And okay, I'll skip this. Okay, the other social factors that also influence the shape of place is the characteristic of the vendors and visitors. Mostly local merchants that sells their stuff in the traditional shopping area mostly come from the local residents near the market. So their local dialect, clothing, and interaction between vendors and visitors offering distinctive look and feel to this tourist destination. As we can see, mostly people go to the traditional market because they still can bargain the price, which is something that you cannot do at a modern market. And in Ubud, we also see this, that Ubud merchants carrying their stuff using a basket, a bamboo basket like this, And the more special look, I think, is Acil-Acil in Lok Baintan. So the sellers in Kalimantan, in Lok Baintan, we call them as Acil-Acil. They use the head, and most of them are use pupur basah. In Indonesia, they call pupur basah, but it's like a facial mask from the rice. It's they use this to withstand with the heat from the rivers. And the last social factor is event and
Halo.
promotional activities.
Iya, Ren, gimana Ren?
The crowds generated by these programs and events might attract other visitors to come and join in the activities. Especially those with the same lifestyle and hobbies will provide a feeling of comfort and security. And also considered as a factor that creates a people and place relation. So from our research, we found that there are 3 types of Indonesia traditional shopping area in form of traditional market, shopping corridor, and floating market. And from the research, we also make some suggestion for design guideline for 3 types of Indonesia traditional shopping area by accommodating physical and social factors to create a sense of place. But further design development must be done for the next process according to the local character in each place. And actually, our research was done before the COVID. So when you ask about how to respond about the pandemic, this design needs to be adjusted again. But I will show you about the proposal that accommodating physical and social factors. So at first, in traditional shopping market is by choosing the right site, by choosing a strategic location that needed to facilitate visitor access, and the existence of a market need to close with other tourist attractions. So it is to support each other tourism sustainability. And the building details of the market also must featuring details from the local architecture. And for the interior, we suggest that the interior is integrated with the outdoor, so the airflow can work well in the area, and spatial organization is made linearly along the circulation path. And we set the seller kiosk. We also provide the viewing area with 2.5 meters, and also the circulation path for 2%. And for the focal point is also needed to impress visitor, and we place the focal point at the front of the building. And the narration of and local history is also must known by the visitors and accommodated by using with infographics at several points to make visitors know the place more. And to accommodate events and promotion, we provide the open space for to hold the festival that can attract tourists. For traditional shopping corridors, the site is actually this type of traditional shopping corridors generally form from 2 main attractions that can be used as traditional shopping corridors. And in the building design, we also should accommodate and adapt the details of local architecture. We also providing circulation corridors, 3 meters width for pedestrian two-way circulation, and we also provide viewing area and seller kiosk. The same here, narration and local history is accommodated with infographic at several points, and focal points in traditional shopping corridor can be realized in the form of a gate. So besides work as a place marker, it's also as a transition from the tourist attraction to the traditional shopping corridor. And every type of the market also needs an open space, the open space for holding the festival that can attract tourists. This is the last one, the floating market type. So the site, actually floating market, can be developed for watersheds with a riverbank community. So the transition between river and land areas in the form of a dock and supporting facilities is built on the riverbank so that visitors can experience a comfortable shopping experience both on land and on the river. And for the architecture, we're providing supporting facilities with local architectural adaptation in the form of stilt houses or floating houses, and making the river as the main orientation of the building to create the unique shopping experience in floating market. And maybe we'll not talk about the interior when we talk about the floating market, but more about the product display on the boat. The display of the product on the boat are arranged carefully, so it is easy for the buyers to see and choose the products. The same here for narration and local history by accommodating it with infographics, and the focal point can be realized in the form of a bridge or iconic plaza as a place marker. And events and promotion also accommodated with the open space, and the river itself has the potential as an open area to hold an event. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rani. I think that's all of my presentation. Back to you, Ms. Rani.
Thank you, Ibu Dani. It's very nice to see the traditional market of Indonesia. All right, so we open the Q&A sessions for those who want to ask questions. Please feel free to
Miss
chat.
Rani, I got a question for Miss
Okay, okay.
Sorry,
All
I'm being a
right.
bit because I'm really intrigued by the market, the traditional market research, but I'm still trying to understand what are you looking at the typology of these traditional markets, or what are the common grounds? Are you looking at different type of this market? Because I'm trying to connect from one to another, and I don't know, because I think they are all separate, but I want to know whether you could explain to me the common grounds are similar in terms of placemaking, like you said just now, in terms of all these traditional market, because I've only been to some of them, but I haven't been to most of it, I think. And this my second question. I'm really also intrigued by your one of the social aspect of narration. I want to know, how do you find out about these narratives from the locals? How do you go about understanding using the narratives to make it a sense of place of these traditional markets? Thank you very much.
Okay, where is Ibu Dani?
Zulfikar, is it okay for me to ask?
Wait. I'm trying to find Ibu Dani. Is Ibu Dani around? Wait. Ibu Dani, where are you? Can you notify yourself?
I think she will be right back. I think kicked out by the internet connection, maybe. We collect another question first.
Okay, wait. Sorry, Prof. Azizi, wait for a while, okay? I'm trying to get her back again. We have lots of questions for you, by the way. So.
Zulfikar, Bu Rani.
Yeah.
It is okay for me to ask something?
Yeah, Pak. Feel free.
Okay. Thank you, Bu Rani. I want to ask you, Bu Dyah, about experience in traditional market. So I think the smell and the traditional music is very important. When I visit the Jogja traditional market, I always smell from the batik, from the how to say in product from the traditional market. So I think it is very important if you want to go to the market, the smell and the sound, it is very attractive. So by your research, you didn't put the anchor or the good tenant in the from in front for the area, but you put the tenant in the middle of the area. So I think it's not so. It is not so how to say in very. It's not so good for the traditional market because people want to go to the traditional market is they want to know the special thing like smell, music, and the other products. So I see Budia put the traditional market in the middle. What do you reason for this? Because it is very new for me. Thank you. Thank you, Bu Rani.
Oh, sama-sama Pak. Okay. Wait, I'm still waiting for Ibu Dani to join again. She was accidentally kicked out. Okay, wait. Sorry for the technical problems. She is still waiting for the connection. Maybe Ibu Melania can help to answer because you are in one research group with Ibu Dani, or maybe Ibu Astrid. Prof. Azizi, could you please repeat your question again? Because Bu Melania will try to help to answer because she's one research team with Ibu Dani. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, Bu Melania. All right. The first question was about the research of all these traditional markets in terms of the sense of place or creating the place making of all these markets. I don't see any similarities in terms of your research. Are you looking at the typology of all these traditional markets, or are you looking for just a random? Because I think in terms of comparison, it'd be great to see what the difference they are in terms of their own cultural identity as well. My second question is that in terms of the social factors that Ibu Dyah was mentioning just now about the narratives, I want to know how do I acquire all this data through narratives, because I bet all cultural have different understanding of what narratives can be in terms of placemaking. So what are the things that you can maybe acquire from getting all this data from the narratives kind of exercise? It's very interesting, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Bu Melania, can you help to answer, please?
if it take a long time to answer, maybe we have another schedule anymore, Rani?
No, actually, yeah, we have only question and answer. Then after that, giveaway, and that's it. Actually,
I think we go to giveaway, and if it if the speaker cannot get in, maybe we answer by email later on. How is it?
that would be possible. So I will ask Jennifer to use the to spin the names again. Right, Jennifer, can you help with that, please? I'm trying to contact Jennifer for the Wheel of Fortune again. Hold on. Sorry, everyone.
Wow, a lot of questions then.
Yeah, that's why. It's just very interesting, you know.
What is the gift then?
We give another, what, the giveaway?
Yep.
Imani 100,000 rupiah for 5 winners. So we already have 3, so we have 2 more lucky names.
Yeah.
All right, Jen, you can start to spin. Okay, we have one more. Congratulations. And all right, and with Zulfikar. And we're still trying to find the connections from the speakers.
I mean, maybe I use the time to chit chat with Professor Norman.
Okay,
Professor Norman.
Sure.
Professor Norman, what do you think about the Ibu Dyah presentation, Sense of Places?
I think it's a very valuable analysis. The really important thing is, I think, as we grow into this huge world, I mean, Indonesia is huge. When we look at the numbers of people there, we look and we think, oh my God, there's about 10 people there for every one of us. But I know most of them, so I'm very pleased with that. I think they're lovely people. I've had a lot of students who are, but I think one of the important things is, as we grow closer as a whole world, well, except for America, of course, we need to retain what's ours, our memories from the past. We can't, if we lose them all, then we'll lose everything. We'll lose that sense of self and sense of place. We'll also lose that sense of enjoyment for me, like me, coming to Indonesia to enjoy what you have to offer. If it's what I have at home, then there's no point in me coming. So it's really important to have those definitions. It reminds me also of, like, food and music are really important parts of our cultures, individual cultures. And I'm reminded of a tourist I once saw in Italy. She was an American tourist, and she was in a restaurant, and she was delivered with a prawn with a head on it, and she just looked back like this and said, "Oh my God, it's got a head on it." Well, you know, prawns come with heads, and a lot of food. You know, if we pre-package food, for example, so it's all rectangular, wrapped up in plastic, to me that's not food anymore. That's something else in plastic. So I think it's really important that you need to be well aware of your cultural strengths and the markets anywhere in the world, but I think especially throughout Asia, a critical part of life, not only your lives individually, because you live with those markets and rely on them to get your food, but you meet people there, their community places, you celebrate life, you can enjoy places safely. We have markets in Melbourne too, but much of Australia doesn't. But we go to the market because of that very reason. It helps define our community. So I think it's a really important part of what you should be looking at. And then next thing, of course, is you'll need people with political will to make sure that you hang on to what you've got and improve its value over time. So yeah, excellent, really important work.
Yes, indeed. So your message would be for us to remember what we have now, and if it's possible to preserve it. Yeah, I once go to the market in Kalimantan. That is Pasar Apung, and it's very marvelous. And they say we have also like that in Bandung.
Yeah.
So I think the whole Indonesia have specific area with river. That's why the sense of market came in there. Try to sell things like that. I think it's a very good for us to retain our culture.
I think so too. And I mean, the relationship between us as humans and our natural environment is critical. If we lose that, we just become robots. So the market is a very important connection between that, and especially if you've got beautiful rivers to float your markets on, you've got this wonderful interaction between real life, natural life, and human life, and it means we can't get too far away from it and become too robotic. So I think it's really important.
Thank you, Professor Norman. So Rani, are we in now?
Yes. We have Bu Astrid here. Bu Astrid is the project leader for this research. So she would like to help to answer for the first question.
Professor Azizi, is it?
He left already because he has something else to do. Later he will email me the question and I will pass it on to Ibu Dyah. So okay, we have by Haki Arshal from Syah Kuala. I want to ask, how do we maintain the traditional culture of the Indonesian shopping area? As an architect which has so many unique people, unique places in this modern era.
Miss Rani, please calm this because I don't have a chat in my previous chat. Yes.
Okay.
I will answer one by one, I think.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
How do we maintain the traditional culture of the Indonesian shopping area as an architect which has so many unique people, unique places in this modern era?
Yes, thank you for the question. Of course, we cannot maintain it by ourselves from the academic institution. We have a collaboration. In our research too, we have a collaboration with the government and also the local community so that we give them our findings, several things that we have found that should be preserved. And then we give a discussion to them and they will make a record to follow up what going to be the next step. I think, yes, it is collaboration, the government step, and also the institution of academic, and also the collaboration with the community at the local space. Thank you. That is Bu Rani.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ibu Astrid. Okay, so we proceed to the second questions from Onidian. How to respond or maybe design the placemaking during this pandemic according to the sense of place? Is there any difference, or should we have to or maybe reimagine it again? Then from the 3 types of shopping areas, which is the ideal type to respond to COVID condition?
Okay, about Dyah here, or I will continue.
Yeah,
Yes,
Bu Astrid, please feel free.
yes, about the COVID pandemic. Yes, of course, it's like a force major situation that we are facing right now. So I think that all places, I think public spaces has disrupted. So yes, of course, on the next step, there will be uh, a new kind of sense of place, since we have also right now to deal with the sanitation, with the procedure of the healthiness, like we are using mask, and we are also giving some wash machine in the front of the tourism resort area. So COVID has disrupted us, but I believe that it will be fun someday after the vaccine has found. We have known that we have traditional market ships since we have been Roman Empire and also Greek Empire. We have found that Socrates also give lectures in Agora. Agora is the oldest shape of the market. So until now, we are still see other traditional markets like Indonesian traditional markets and also Grand Bazaar in Turkey and Khan el Khalili in Egypt. So I believe we can't separate with a place that called market because we have so many interaction there. I am believing that someday it will be back to the normal. So yes, Burani, at the normal we will still consider about the hygiene and sanitation. But yes, it will be.
Yeah, I hope this pandemic will end really soon.
Yes.
It changes everything, every single thing in this life.
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
A last question.
Yeah, I have still also one question about
Yeah.
the ideal thing of
Ideal
three
thing.
shopping areas. Yes, of course. Right now, we can consider mall. Somehow, some people don't want to go to the mall or shopping center because of they are afraid of the COVID pandemic that are infection is causes by airborne. So right now, the shopping area that considered the safest place, I think, must have the open space elements that allow a fresh air movement on the site. So it will become a good combination, whether it is a shopping street, whether it is buildings types, with the combination of the open space. I think that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Astrid. Okay, one question again. Is Miss Dani or Ibu Astrid is going to answer? There is another question from Surya Dharmaminata. Okay.
If we have Miss Dani here, it's okay. If, Miss
Yeah, halo Bu.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sorry Bu, technical issues.
Okay. How to make a sense of place from one area to another, but in that area also has a very strong sense of place. For example, making a sense of place in Jogja in Bali, while Bali itself has a very strong sense of place. And the second question is implementing the new experience for user is included as the sense of place. Thank you.
From Surya ya, Bu Rani ya?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Thank you Surya for the question. I think my question is, and why you create sense of place Jogja in Bali? Because Bali itself also has their unique sense of place. But maybe if you want to create a specific sense of place like Jogja, but you want to create it in Bali, I think you can follow our research methods to know the physical and social factors first, maybe from the observation or maybe from observation, interview, or focus group discussion. So from the data collecting, you already know what makes Jogja special. So when you know the physical and social factors that creates the sense of place of Jogja, hopefully you can implement it at Bali. But I think when you make a design in Bali, I think that you should consider is the sense of place of Bali itself, not the other places. I think I hope that's answer your question, Surya.
All right. Okay. One last question before we end because we're running behind all of time. One is from Akram. Akram is a USM student, and he would like to ask to Miss Dyah, what is the difference between the sense of place and place identity, and its people shape the interior of the place, or the interior place shape the people?
Oh, it's a little bit complex, right? Maybe identity of the place, yeah, Bu, yeah. Identity of the place and sense of place.
What's the difference between sense of place and place identity? And
oh yeah,
the people shape the interior, or the interior shape the people?
Okay, I think when we talk about maybe Bu Astrid can answer to ya Bu to complement my answer. Sense of place is about the experience. It's about when people come to the place and experience the space. So every person will also have a different sense of place when they come to a specific space. But identity of a place, I think it's about a special characteristic that build the physical and social environment. And apa Bu yang terakhir is people affecting
People
interior.
shape the place. People shape the place of the interior, or the interior place shape the people.
For me, I think first it's the people that shape the place, because every people has their own background, has their own culture. So the shape itself that surrounded them is actually is modified by them to fulfill their needs, and their habits. And that's why every space is also show some specific cultures based on the community. I think it's people first that set the place. Maybe Bu Astrid can help Bu to answer the question. Thank you, Miss Rani.
I will complement Miss Dani's answer. So first about the sense of place and place identity. Yes, sense of place is a very complex relation of people and places. So it has a various intentionality. I will show you my presentation, but only in Indonesia. Just a little bit theories. I will show you about this. So, if you know that the sense of place have the skill, so the identity is at the second step. So it has a very various intentionality from not having sense of place until want to sacrifice to the place at the seventh level. So the place identity is one element of the sense of place. When a people or someone has know about the identity of the place, the character of the place. In Indonesia, yes, mengetahui suatu tempat, yes, it is considered as the second level of the sense of place. So yes, it is a very, very deep meaning of the people relationship to the place. I compliment about the first question, Bu Rani.
Okay, thank you, sir, very much, Ibu Astrid. So since we are running out of time, now we are already at the end of the session. So I would like to say a huge thanks again for all the presenters for the informative and interesting talk, and for the audience for your active participations. I'm really, really sorry. On behalf of the committee, I would like to asking apologies for all of you because of this technical issue. Hopefully this presentation will be beneficial for everyone. Okay, so once again, thank you very much to stay until the end of the session. Please always stay safe, practice social distancing, and always wear your mask, okay? Take care, everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.
Thank you, Professor Norman.
Thank you, Prof.
See you
Norman.
again.
Take care there.
Thank you, Shen.
Bye.
Thank you, Rani.
Thank
Bye.
you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.